Good evening, I'm Hugh Downs, and this is 2020.
On the ABC News Magazine, 2020, tonight.
And I had to let a few people die in order that others might live, who were going to die no matter what I did.
A tea dance, and they were happy. Then, 2 walkways collapsed, and there was tragedy. Tonight, from Kansas City, Tom Jarrell with the story of 12 horrifying hours of agony and heroism in a moment of crisis.
Up front tonight, remarkable heroism in a disaster in Kansas City. At 7 o'clock in the evening last Friday, a tea dance was being held in the big open lobby of the Hyatt Regency Hotel. Hundreds of couples were dancing, many of them on these walkways, suspended above the floor. The highest walkway suddenly dropped onto the lowest, and the combined mass of steel and concrete then dropped to the dancers beneath. 111 people died. 188 were injured. When a community is hit suddenly with an overwhelming disaster, how does it react? Well, in this case, with unstinting energy and heroism. Tom Jarrell has been in Kansas City this week covering this story. Tom?
Hugh, by now this city's day of sorrow has been well documented in the daily news reports of body counts and the almost frenzied search for what went wrong. But we found much more here, not yet fully told. It's a story of a horrible tragedy laced with magnificent heroism. This was a test of human ingenuity under the ultimate deadline of death. Events here in Kansas City tested the strongest of human instincts to the limit, the desire to live and to save lives. It brought together men, women, and children whom we shall meet in their moment of crisis, involving the pain of injury, the certainty of death, and perhaps that most dreaded of all human experiences, being hopelessly trapped alive. Friday night on the town. The popular tea dance at the Inn Place, the modern Hyatt Hotel. The big band music of the 40s. This was middle-aged, middle-income, middle America, out for a night of good fun and companionship.
It's a real nice way to spend the Friday evening. It's got a big band, and you meet a lot of your friends. It was just very nice.
Edward Simmons, survivor, whose life, along with the lives of hundreds of others, would be in the hands of people they never knew. Some were still at work while the late afternoon tea dance was still underway. Breaking concrete on a construction job nearby, Country Bill Allman, a jackhammer operator. Firemen Mike Trader and Roger Tudor, rescue specialist who ride a hook and ladder. Dr. Joe Wackerly at Baptist Hospital was just finishing duty in the emergency room. Heavy-duty crane operator Chet Hinckley and liquor store owner Frank Hashman. While they were elsewhere, the colorful balloons floated skyward at the tea dance, up toward those special aerial walkways. Crowds had begun to gather on them to watch the swirling partners directly below. The dancers were wrapped up in the music and each other. Eugene Jeter and his bride Karen had been married only 2 weeks and showed it.
Well, I saw some friends there. I saw Bud Jeter there that I've gone to law school with. And, Jeter started to leave, were leaving, but they didn't get out. They were killed.
The music and life for many of the dancers came to an end when 2 crowded overhead walkways caved in. In an instant, tons of concrete and steel had buried hundreds, killing most, but trapping scores of survivors deep beneath 2 layers of twisted rubble.
Fire department.
Come to the Hyatt Regency immediately. 3 sky bridges fell in.
3 what?
Sky bridges holding people from the 3rd floor fell and crashed.
Okay.
Immediately.
Hyatt Regency?
Hyatt Regency immediately.
All right.
As that first call to the fire department went out, there was mass confusion. But those not injured rushed forward to help. Businessmen, busboys, hotel guests. Ignoring the possible danger of further collapse, they administered to the injured. The first professionals on the scene immediately radioed for more help.
This is Jordan. We're on duty at the Hyatt Regency. The balcony collapsed and there may be 50 to 100 people.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, and we need something that can lift several tons. Fire department, people are trapped underneath the balcony.
The worst hurt were choppered out.
I remember crying because I hurt so bad inside. not being able to do more with what I had.
Neither the forklifts already at the scene nor the fire department's heaviest lift equipment was adequate to reach the trapped.
The horror struck me as I seen people laying there, smashed underneath this tons of steel, and knowing that we probably would not be able to lift it with what equipment that we had.
As bulldozers ripped out the hotel entryway, heavy cranes parked at a construction site nearby were brought up. Operator Chet Hinckley smashed out the front hotel windows to get his crane into position over the rescue site. His machine was the only thing powerful enough to raise the 10-ton slabs covering the victims.
Moving these slabs was something that it could have, you don't know what's under there outside of the people that was trapped. You don't know what kind of a structure the rest of the building was in. It could have all fallen clear to the basement for all we know. So we just had to go slow and easy.
A doctor came up, and I'm sorry I don't know his name, because the man was a very brave man, and he asked me if I'd go underneath with him, and we went in between the two steel beams, and he would tell me which ones were dead and which ones were alive.
That doctor was emergency room physician Joe Wackerly, who had arrived at the scene to team up with the firemen.
As we went around, we found the pockets of people, most dead, some alive, some barely alive.
He would go down in the hole with the people and assess their injuries, and even at times resetting their bones there in the hole before they brought them out.
I had to dismember some bodies to get some other bodies, to get some live people out, and I had to let a few people die in order that others might live, who were going to die no matter what I did.
Every place you looked, there was pieces of bodies, there was things, blood running out in different areas, and it was horrible to me.
Trapped amongst the dead were many still living. Regina Weir and 9 others were in a pocket of debris where they would remain for 8 hours.
I couldn't see 2 inches in front of my face. All I could hear were moanings and screaming.
Somebody was over me with his feet up against my right shoulder. Apparently he was hurt pretty bad, paralyzed.
The rescuers started drilling a hole right above me, and they were able to cut it out and pull me out eventually.
They were able to reach through that hole, and luckily I had on my jacket, and several hands just grabbed that jacket and then never let go. They just kept tugging.
Not as fortunate was Jeff Durham, a bartender. Pinned by steel beams across his legs, he was alive but sinking fast. Drastic measures were called for.
I made the decision that the man would not live much longer, and that if he wanted to have the chance to live, we were going to have to take his leg off.
I saw him laying there, and they were putting the IVs, one in each arm, and they said, "Will you hold these?" And I did.
I said, your leg is not salvageable, probably, even if we could get it off of you, and I don't think we can get you out, and you're not going to live otherwise. And I have to look at some other people, so why don't you think about that?
I never dreamed that I could stand and watch a man's leg being cut off.
The leg was amputated, but Jeff Durham died. By now, the rescue teams were drained by the carnage. But as they methodically went about their jobs, a voice from below restoked their emotions.
We were told by the chief to see if we could find anybody alive underneath the first layer. And so we started going around the base next to the floor, hollering, and to see if we could get anybody to answer us.
Every once in a while they would ask us to be still so they could listen. And they knelt down and they could hear this voice from underneath and knew or thought that it was a young child.
I heard the little boy yelling for help, and he wanted to get out.
He was completely enclosed in concrete and steel. There was maybe at the most an inch between the steel and the floor on the bottom.
Trapped at the deepest level beneath tons of debris was 11-year-old Dalton Grant, lying next to his mother.
I was in the dark, and I was sort of in the splits with my knees up to my chin, and I thought it was a dream. I didn't think something that bad could happen to me. I thought it was a dream, and I kept asking my mom, "Is this a dream?"
I came upon Dalton and his mother. It was interesting because they were both in the fetal position, tucked up like this, I think they were facing each other, and they couldn't move because they were locked in each other with a dead person over them this way and a dead person on each of them behind them.
My foot was caught under the balconies, about 3 tons on one foot, and the other foot was being pushed down by the bottom of the balcony, and I couldn't stretch it out because there was a corpse right under it.
I lay down and started talking to him, explaining what was going on, what we were doing, so he wouldn't be scared, try to calm him down, and ask him his name and how old he was. And he told me he was 11 years old. And it struck me at the time because my own son is 11.
It's all right.
It was pretty bad down there.
I was just saying, Mom, are we going to die? And I didn't know what to do, and I thought we were going to die.
No, he just wanted out. He was begging to get out.
It was really scary because I couldn't actually see the bodies. I could just feel the wet hair on the lady, and the guy's shoe, and his ankle was really wet, and I didn't know if it was blood or water.
For 5 hours, Dalton lay trapped with his mother, occasionally squeezing her hand for comfort. Neither was aware that above them, Country Bill had arrived with his jackhammer.
The doctor was over there, and me and him and the other guy, we was trying to make a hole to get his head down in there so he can talk to the people down underneath.
I heard jackhammers and saws and axes.
So we got part of a hole built and chipped out with a jackhammer, 95-pound jackhammer. We had it out.
I thought that the hole was going to come through right over me, and they might hit me with the jackhammer.
Well, he was jackhammering over their heads. And when he was jackhammering over their heads, they was yelling out that, I'm down here and you're jackhammering over our heads.
I was in the dark so long. When I looked up at all the light and strange faces, like every new face I see, it's not like it's real.
I said, hi, I'm Dr. Joe, and what's your name? And we, Dalton, and because I had to find out, I was down there with him, we had to find out what was going on and what way he was, and I talked to his mom, and I talked to him.
Dr. Joe, Country Bill, and the fireman got the boy out 7 hours after he was entombed.
When they pulled him out, everybody started clapping whenever they seen the people come out, the little boy and the mother.
We just applauded. I don't understand why, but we applauded. It was so exhilarating that it was one life saved after all the bodies that we'd seen. This is another life that was saved.
Hugh, a personal note in closing. Kansas City can be proud of the way its people handled this disaster. Ordinary people were called upon time and time again to perform extraordinary deeds. They did, and did them well.
Thank you, Tom. Incidentally, that exclusive footage of the tea dance and the immediate aftermath of the disaster was shot by KMBC cameraman David Forstate.